those of you who may or may not be involved in COPPA, that stands for the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, where you can how we advertise to children and the rules and regulations around that. And for those of you on here, you should be listening, and I'll tell you why. There are whispers of this going to be 18 plus. So think about how many of your users are 18 and under. You're gonna have to comply with COPPA, the regulations, the restrictions. You won't be able to do any targeting, all the things that come along with that. Playwire's been in COPPA for almost, I think, 7 or 8 years now. We're probably one of the largest aggregators of COPPA compliant inventory, as well as bring that amount of demand equally. So, what should a COPPA app publishers consider, when monetizing their app? Actually think about this as this kind of evolves, and if it goes to 18 and under, that's gonna be a real big problem for everyone, not just specific publishers, every publisher. Robyn, if you want to.
Yeah, I can take it first. I think, it's interesting, of course, like a little speculative to try to understand like what's going to happen in the future. I don't think we know, but it certainly could be. And also there's kind of like all these different state regulations, international regulations. There's a lot that's going on about protecting children, which we think is awesome. I think is awesome. Of course, we want to make sure that kids are having safe online internet experiences. Google is super, transparent around like how much we value that, whether it be our Google Play Families program, our Google Families Ads program, having an advent of blocking controls, making sure that we have all of the different privacy tools and suite that you would need to be able to implement a COPPA compliance strategy is really critical to our business. So my advice for a COPPA app publisher would be to be like really transparent with your users, being really clear as to like what kind of ratings you have for your ads. So like, for example, is your ad inventory selected for E? Is it mature? Is it 18 plus? Like, how are you, having that relative to your app store rank or your app store rating, right? So if you have like a family compliant app, you also have to have family compliant ads. I'd spend a lot of time in your ad review center looking through the types of ads that serve, making sure all risky types of content is blocked so that does not get through. Being really clear around, you're of course not going to want to have any like alcohol ads, anything that could even be kind of those like edge case ads for children, and making sure that you have like a clean and safe kind of setup. That way the inventory that flows through is completely compliant and you don't have to worry about it much. So I think that setup is really critical, and making sure that you're continuing to stay abreast with all of the latest changes. Like I have, people will email me and say like, what's going on with like the Nevada State Child Act? I'm like, there's a new one every single day. And so I think eventually we're going to be in a place where, whether it's legally or just kind of like easier, everything across the board is going to end up being COPPA safe, compliant with all of the different like data regulations. And I think that we're moving into that world more so. I know we've had quite a bit in the past 5 years or so, but I anticipate that to go, further and further.
Yeah, we're fortunate that we have a long history in COPPA, and we've got, so anyone who works with us kind of already gets the benefit of that, right? We're KidSafe certified, we're KRU certified, we're part of the family Google Ads programs. We're constantly monitoring these things, updating our technology and apps to make sure that we're compliant. So it's interesting to see how that's evolved. Nick, anything on your end for?
Yeah, just a couple things. I mean, it's a big topic. I wouldn't try to cover all of it here, but briefly, like, if you're dealing with any sort of kids on your site, you need to think about 2 different kinds of problems that can come up with advertising. One is compliance, and the other is content. And you don't want to lose track of either of those things. And you have to recognize that they're different. Compliance is about usually compliance with regulation around what kind of data can be collected. But that's very separate from the issue of what kind of content is appropriate. You can have all the ads that you want that we're careful about the data being collected, and nevertheless, you don't want to show a CBD ad to a 10-year-old, for example. So you got to be very careful about these things. And it's not just something as obvious as CBD. I mean, you also have to think about your brand and what kind of expectations you have that are particular to you. We've had customers who have been worried about, say, having a Nerf gun show up in an advertisement. Other kids publishers might be less sensitive about that and say, no, that's fine. So then that gets into another thing, which is that it's really important to have a relation. If you're not going and trying to manage that thing yourself, which I think is a very challenging thing to go and manage yourself. If you're going to be working with a provider, you need to make sure that that you have a real relationship with that provider, that they really understand the needs of your particular brand, and that they're reflecting that in the sorts of ads that are being permitted to be shown. But that also means you need to have a provider who can handle the protections around data collection, and also one that can monitor and block content both proactively and reactively. Only if you have those sorts of measures in place can you really be feeling safe about advertising to kids.